to the place where we learn about improv. Cause public speaking can take you so far. Improv speaking, say yes and flex your creative thinking. Improv speaking, say yes and flex your creative thinking.
Welcome, everyone, to the Improv Speaking podcast. I'm so excited that you're joining us today. One of our first episodes here, one of the first of many. And I am so excited to introduce you to our guest, which I'll get to in a minute. On this podcast, I like to talk to people who have a background in public speaking, improv, communication, performance, and creativity. And I'm excited to say that today's guest is using all of those skills and more. So without further ado, let's get to our guest today. Our very special guest is Victoria Koenitzer. Victoria is an associate attorney in San Diego, California. She supports clients in civil defense litigation, concentrating in personal injury, government and public entity claims, and premises liability. All that sounds really intense. Outside of work, she's an improviser, performer, and an improv workshop instructor. Victoria is a graduate of Finest City Improv, who is also trained at Upright Citizens Brigade, or UCB, World's Greatest Improv School, or WGIS, the Pack Theater, Cornerstone Improv, Camp Improv Utopia Yosemite, Second City, and amongst others. That's amazing. What a resume. She is also a Toastmaster and has served in the past as president of Improv Masters, a San Diego Toastmasters group that focuses on short-form improv. She has performed in many improv shows and festivals, and I can attest that she is such a supportive scene partner and friend. Please welcome the amazing, the talented, the best improviser around, Victoria Koenitzer. Welcome, Victoria. Yay!
Thank you so much for having me, Dana. Wow, what a nice introduction. I feel like you are the ultimate hype woman.
Yeah, maybe I found my next calling. Improv hype woman, hyping up all the improvisers out there, right?
Oh my gosh, I would love that. Would you please just come backstage before every show I ever do?
Absolutely. Of course. I would love to. And for our listeners, Victoria and I met at Camp Improv Utopia, the Yosemite camp, which we met last year in 2021. And we weren't in the same group, the same performance group, but we met, we stayed in touch, and I'm so happy we did. And we're going back next year at this time of the recording next week. Can you believe that camp is next week, Victoria?
Oh my gosh, I can't. I am so excited. I feel like it snuck up on us, and now there's something in the very immediate future to look forward to.
I am so excited. And by the time this gets released, we'll have already gone to camp. But, you know, I have to say that the first year, last year going to camp, I was really nervous about it. I mean, you know, it's a new thing, and I didn't really know anyone else going. I think I might have known maybe two people, and one was like the head of the camp. But I was really scared. And then I told myself, you know what? Improv camp is the best kind of camp to go to because improvisers are so friendly and welcoming. And as soon as I got there, like all the nerves went away. Everyone was so nice. And it took like a few hours to kind of acclimate. But then it felt like home, just meeting all kinds of new friends, making connections. I had a blast. I can't wait till next year. I mean, I had a blast. I can't wait. See, take an improv bow there. I can't wait till next week.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I cannot wait until next week either. And I feel like you said it perfectly. It's such a supportive group. And my first year going was Yosemite Camp in 2019.
Wow.
And yeah, I've only gone twice, but I remember having the same nerves and being intimidated because I, at that point, had only been taking improv classes for about a year, had been doing improv a little bit longer, but only really officially taking classes for a year. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like, am I going to belong here, etc. And, you know, going into my group, which was the deconstruction group taught by Brian James O'Connell, who was brilliant. I remember Oh, he's incredible. I love BOC. And yeah, I just remember everyone went around and said their improv experience. And by far, I was the least experienced at 1 year. But like you said, it all quickly just melts away because everyone's so supportive. It feels like home. Everyone's welcoming. 10 out of 10. I tell everyone to go to camp.
I was on such a high last year after camp, like for a week. It was a week-long high. Just everyone was posting on Facebook and the Facebook group, sharing pictures and like, connecting with all the people I met. It was just such a blast. And I just feel like this year, knowing people now, and then there will be new people to meet doing a different form. So I'm doing deconstruction this year with BOC. I'm so nervous about it. For our improv friends or non-improv friends, I should say, deconstruction is it's really intense. There's a lot of levels. I think that's the best way to say it. There's just a lot of things going on in it. There's a lot to keep up with. And I'm nervous about keeping up, but that's why you do it, right? That's why you go.
Exactly. No, and I don't be nervous. I think the deconstruction is my favorite form. And BOC is so supportive. I mean, he is just an absolute wealth of knowledge, but also just very welcoming to everyone. And although it's a lot of information to intake in about I think 10 hours of workshop time that we have, you'll get it. And it feels so great. I absolutely adore that form to my core. So I hope that you find the same love in it. And I think, BOC's passion for it shines through. So I think it's very infectious.
Amazing. And which form are you doing this year?
JTS Brown.
Oh, nice. I call that the fever dream of improv, because that's what it looks like watching as an audience member.
Absolutely. I actually remember one of the first shows that I ever saw at Finest City Improv, one of the first long form shows I ever saw in San Diego, actually, was a JTS Brown show. And at the time, I didn't know what it was. I was like a level 1 student. And it was actually, I think, the first suggestion I ever gave. They asked for a suggestion of a word that started with N, and I just yelled nomenclature from the back row, which I feel like is a hard suggestion. I didn't mean to.
Very hard. Yeah.
Yeah, but they did great. And I just remember, some improvisers became like fire or they became a chair. And I was like, what is going on? Like, as a new improviser, I mean, it was great, but I get what you're saying about the fever dream, because I was like, this scene where they were elephants just turned into them being a cabin on fire, just turned into them jumping out of a helicopter. Like, what is going on?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that too. And I don't see that one often. So it's just crazy when I get to watch it. And for our non-improviser friends, I promise we won't talk improv the whole time, although we might, and that's okay too. But for
I promise,
our non-improv,
but I don't promise.
Yeah. Sorry, not sorry. For our listeners, Camp Improv Utopia is a 4-day, weekend-long overnight camp for adults, which I one time phrased it as I'm going to an adult improv camp, and people were like, whoa, what does that look like? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, totally naive. And then I was like, oh, it's not anything like that. And
Isn't it weird how language works?
Right, I know. Yeah, it's like, no, it's not sexual, I promise. So it's an improv camp for adults, and you get 10 plus hours of improv class and instruction. And on the last night, all the groups do improv shows. We get to kind of perform in front of each other, and it's a really supportive group. It's extra supportive, I will say. You get like heightened laughs. It's an amazing feeling, an amazing environment. And it's just so much fun to be around improv nerds, I have to say. Just like we're nerding out, just imagine like 80 other improv nerds just nerding out over these 4 different forms that we're doing for the weekend. It's a blast.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I have so much fun. I just want to go to all the camps all the time. It's the best feeling.
Yes. And I saw that they're offering one in Spain next year. So just take all my money, please, because I want to go to all of them.
Yeah. Want to fly there together, Dana? Because I am down. Let's go.
Yeah. Yes, and let's do it.
Okay, we have it here. You heard it here first, folks. If we don't go, if one of us backs out, there is proof.
There is proof. I know, right? This is the problem with doing podcasts. It's like, oh, there is verbal proof now on the internet that we said we're going to do something. So I guess we must, right?
I guess we must.
All right, Victoria. So I wanted to have you on today because I know that you do improv and also public speaking. And I really want to hear about your journey, your improv journey, and like why did you start doing improv classes in the first place?
I started doing improv. I guess for me, it was kind of a two birds, one stone situation. I had always, when I'd seen improv, from afar and watched it, whether it be, on YouTube or whatever it was, whose line is it anyway, like most people, I'd always thought, wow, that would be so fun. And I think that really resonates with me. But I had this crippling fear of public speaking. And so I just never pursued it prior in life. And I was entering my last semester of law school, my third year of law school. And I thought, I can't be a litigator if I am paralyzed by public speaking. So I decided to look around in San Diego and see what was available. And there was a Toastmasters club called Improv Masters that does exclusively short form improv. And of course, everyone knows that Toastmasters exists for helping those improve their public speaking skills. So I went and I'll never forget. I left my first, it was a Wednesday night, it's like 6:30 to 8. And I walked away and I called my best friend and I was like, oh my gosh, that was absolutely terrifying, but I love it. And I'm going back always. So that's how I got my start. And then I just fell in love with it very quickly from there and never looked back. I feel like I pretty quickly, in a matter of weeks, mostly got over my public speaking fear and was like, why did I not do this earlier in life? And then after I took the bar, which for California attorneys, it's in July, and I took the bar and went on my post-bar trip and then came back and immediately started taking improv classes, knowing that I'd have the time for that. So that's when I started long form improv, was probably September of 2018, but started short form improv with Toastmasters in January of 2018.
Wow, nice. Not to make you relive your past traumas, but when you say you had a crippling fear of public speaking, like what did that entail?
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
did you get all red faced like I did?
Oh, so many things. First, I feel like I would have, if you had told me, in any class that I had to speak in or give a presentation, hey, I will do the speaking for you if you pay me $500 and I can just be Victoria. No one will know the difference. I would have done it easily. It was like anything.
Take all my money
Seriously,
here.
I was like, please no. But for me, I feel like my voice would get shaky. I feel like I physically got shaky. My head was like spiraling. I couldn't think straight. I don't know if you're familiar with the Socratic method or what is also known as cold calling in law school, but in law school, what they do is wherever you sit on your first day of class for that class, you're basically stuck, and they pass around a seating chart and you write in your name. So for the rest of the semester, they will randomly look at the seating chart and just go, Miss Koenitzer, could you please tell us the holding of blah, blah, blah versus blah, blah, blah? And so you have to know like everything about the 50 plus pages of reading for that day. And for me, it's not that I didn't ever understand the reading or do the reading. It was that I was so petrified of speaking in front of like 80 plus people that I feel like I over prepared and used my time inefficiently by just preparing in the event that I was randomly called on.
How many times were you randomly called on? Do you remember?
Oh, I have no idea. It's really a lot more prevalent your first year of law school. They really kind of make you go through that ringer. But I would say in a semester, roughly 4 or 5 times. It wasn't terrible, but you just never knew when it was coming, which was the worst part.
Yeah, but to somebody who's scared of public speaking, I could totally relate. Like, even having to introduce myself and say my name, which is probably the easiest thing you can say, I would still, like, I could see it coming, like, oh, it's coming to my row,
Yep.
and oh, I have to stand up and introduce myself, and like, hi, I'm Jana Gowan. Like, I feel
Yeah.
all of that. The shaky voice, the red face, shaky legs.
Right. And
I've had all of that too. Yeah.
I don't know if it manifested this way for you as well, but I feel like I avoided drawing attention to myself in any way in terms of in front of a crowd, always been very comfortable one-on-one, or, you could throw me into a party where I know no one and I can, happily spend 5 hours there and get along with everyone. That's fine. It's just the being in front of a group dynamic. And so for me, even if, let's say I'm in class and I have to go to the bathroom and the class is set up where the row that you'd have to walk down, because I'm a back of the class sitter, that's where I am, you have to walk down the middle aisle, like past the lecturer and go out. Oh, I would be like, nope, I am just going to hold my pee. I don't want anyone to have to look at me. But when I walk out, when I walk back in, that was too much attention for me.
I feel that, like, even blowing my nose, which my husband can attest, I'm a loud nose blower. But even blowing my nose in front of people, it's like, oh no, I don't want that attention drawn to me. I feel that too. Yeah.
Hey, being a loud nose blower probably just means you're doing it right. You're getting everything out.
Exactly.
Think of it that way. But
that's what I should tell him.
I get that though. Or, when you have to cough and you get that tickle in your throat and you're like, oh no, I'm going to cough in front of everyone, or your stomach growls. You're like, this is the most embarrassing thing I've ever been through.
So do you still feel this way? Like, oh, no attention on me, don't look at me, kind of thing? Or has Toastmasters Improv helped you with that?
No, I think Toastmasters Improv, as well as just improv in general, has helped a lot. I don't think I any longer feel that hesitation of, getting up and going to the bathroom if it were to be in the middle of a lecture, or...
Right, like, you do you. Like, do what you need to do here.
Exactly. Yeah, just... I feel a lot more comfortable, especially public speaking. I wasn't exactly sure how improv would translate or if it would, but I feel like it very much does, because when you're making things up on the fly, and none of us are mind readers, we don't know what other improvisers are going to do on the fly, and looking silly and being like, I've played the most ridiculous characters on stage, to have a rehearsed speech or to have to speak in front of a group in a way that's, for an objective that you clearly have, like, I need to present this topic, seems a lot less daunting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like your story's really unique, I would say, because I know a lot of people who've done Toastmasters. I'm one of them.
Woo!
I was in Toastmasters for like 5 or 6 years before I took improv classes. So I did not do them like kind of back to back, but I feel like jumping in and doing improv is kind of unique to helping your public speaking. Do you know other lawyers anyone in your profession who's kind of taken that same path?
I really don't, actually. I remember doing this my third year of law school, and I didn't know anyone else in law school that did improv. For the most part, in my profession, or anyone that I've known through law school or purely through my career, I don't know anyone who does improv. There actually was one person that I met in law school who is currently taking a level 3 class at Finest City Improv. And I actually met him through law school because I was on a law journal as the managing articles editor, and I worked with him on that venture. So, I know one person that way. Not to say that there's not other lawyers that do improv. I just had not met any going from my career to improv, if that makes sense. While I've been in improv, I have met other lawyers who are doing that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's, I think it's so cool. Because I could just attest to what I've gotten out of improv, and I'm like, I feel like everyone needs to do this. Like, these are skills that can help everyone in whatever profession you're in. And I understand that yes and applies to a lot, but also not to every profession or like circumstance or job that you do. Certainly, if there are processes and procedures to follow, we're not saying just say yes and go rogue. But like,
you want to light the building on fire? Go for it.
Yes, and I'm going to turn off the water so we can't water it when put the fire out.
And I'm going to throw gasoline on it.
Right. Yeah, like we don't need to go rogue like that, but I think the yes and mindset in general, right? Like it just inspires growth. It encourages people to be better team players and have better listening skills. I mean, these are just such good soft skills that you're getting. And when you're taking classes, I feel like you're seeing them and you're learning them. And then as you kind of become a pro like you are, you don't maybe realize it as much, but I mean, you could definitely tell in your professional life how it's helped.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like I can tell how it's helped in more ways than one. And maybe, I don't know if they're unexpected ways. I was going to say unexpected ways, but maybe not.
Well, and I wanted to ask you too, because I mean, improv is very much it's a performance, right? You're on stage, people are looking at you. Did you ever do any performance when you were younger? Were you in theater or did you do acting or anything like that?
Absolutely none of that. I think I
Yeah.
maybe in first grade did a production that my first grade class put on where I was a horse. And the only memory I have is that they mispronounced my last name. And when we went to go take a bow, and the person was like, and Victoria Koenitzer. And I guess I had the audacity to go up and grab the mic and be like, my last name's not Koenitzer, it's Koenitzer. And the whole crowd cafeteria laughed of all the parents. And I had no idea why, because I was like, well, I was just telling them what my name was. But other than that one production, no.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Yeah, and so I ask you that because I feel like we have similar stories too, like Toastmasters and improv and wanting to
Yes.
face our fears of public speaking. I mean, I never did drama. I didn't do anything what I would consider artistic, drawing, music, theater, drama. Like I didn't do any of
Same.
those. I was very much athletics, sports. That's all I have time for. That's all I'm good at. I'm not good at the creative stuff, so I'm just not even going to try. And it took me till my 30s to like realize that you can try something new and you're not going to be good at it at first, but you get so much out of it by just jumping in and trying.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I feel like that's the thing that we don't always think about, or how do I put this? I think one of the really cool things about being human is that we never know what's around the next corner. We never know when we're going to meet our next best friend, when we're going to find our next favorite hobby. I've met some of my favorite people in the most unexpected situations. And similarly, I think sometimes we find our favorite creative endeavors when we're not necessarily expecting it. Or for me, it was, I want to try improv. I thought I would love it, but wasn't sure. But mostly it was like, okay, now is the time. And the catalyst for me taking action was because I thought, okay, I need to get over this public speaking fear. And then it just snowballed into this love of improv. And I am so thankful that past Victoria took that step and decided to, take a chance and be, able to fail or hate it or just use it to get over my public speaking fear. But yeah, what a crazy world that we never really know what is going to happen next in our lives.
I love that, like the uncertainty of it all and just allowing yourself to give into that uncertainty and be like, I'm going to try something new. And you just never know. Like, listen, I've tried skiing. I did it once. I cried when it happened. This was like 3 years ago. So I'm like in my 30s crying at a lesson. I have knee issues and like my legs shook and it like brought up all the stuff. So I tried skiing. That's probably not going to be my next hobby. Let's be honest here. But I tried it. But like same for you. Like I tried improv. I thought I would like it, but then it was really hard. But I was like, I'm just going to keep going because it is hard, and I want to get better at it. I'm really enjoying this creative outlet that I'm having, and 3 years later, I still want to keep doing it, and I want others to do it just because it's such a cool experience.
Definitely. I completely agree. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about improv, or I guess really a lot of creative endeavors in life, is you're never done learning. For me, I think I will always be a student of improv. I'm always going to want to take more workshops, learn from more instructors, from more areas of the world. I want to learn new things that I haven't before. And, you're not going to I was going to say bat 100. I don't know sports. This is going to be the wrong metaphor, but you're not.
Keep going.
Hell yeah. But yeah, you're just not ever going to be perfect at improv. It's just inevitably imperfect. And so I think that's the beautiful thing is you can keep working towards improving and growing, and you're never going to necessarily have a stopping point, which is so great.
Yeah, it's helped me a ton with the letting go of perfection. Like I would go home after giving a bad speech or something, even in Toastmasters. I would say it took me about 3 to 4 years in Toastmasters to feel really good about the speeches I was giving and not like, that was terrible. I messed up here. But even so, like I still was having those thoughts even 5 years later after conquering my fear of public speaking. And I would have a bad speech where I was still nervous or something. And it would just like ruin my day, my week. I would harp on it and I'd keep thinking about it.
Mhm.
And I think improv has really helped me in that, just letting go of perfection and realizing, one, it doesn't matter that much. Like people aren't thinking about that I said a word wrong or weird. Like it's the experience and it's how you make them feel. Like that's what people care about more. And two, just like let go and trust your skills. Like I know what I'm doing. Just trust myself more. It's brought all of these issues to light for me, and it's cool to hear about your journey too.
Definitely. And likewise, I love hearing about yours. And I think you're so right of just leaning into that. I don't want to say failure, but when things don't go right, I guess this is very specific to improv. But for example, if you're on stage and in a show and it's going awry, we've all been audience members where you can see the nerves on the improvisers and you're like, oh, they're not having fun. They're stressed. Therefore, I am stressed for them. And all I want is for them to do well. And they're like clearly panicking. But, you know, that's one option, is to be on stage and let it get to you. And not that, you know, I don't want to say people have 100% control over that, but the other option is to just lean into it and be like, this is chaos and here we go. We're going to have fun. Like, let's get on this bull and let's ride her to the end and just at least have fun with it within the failure and being like, yeah, that was a wild show. I don't even know, probably not my best, but whatever, you know, that's what this art form is in some ways.
Oh, that's so true. Just double down. That's kind of been my mantra lately. Just like double down. Like I'm feeling weird, I'm feeling awkward, double down on it. Like lean into that character, lean into that game, whatever's going on, just like lean into it a little bit more. And usually that'll work out instead of being like nervous and scared, because I'm not an actor. Like I'm still a very newbie improviser. So you can definitely tell when I'm nervous. Like it's very clear to the audience.
Right. And what you said about leaning into it, I think is so important, or doubling down. I think it's very hard in improv to teach people to be funny, but I think telling people to commit and to commit to their character or to whatever they're doing or their point of view can be such a helpful note, because that just committing harder is funny. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I don't know. I like your take on that of just doubling down.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you too, like you've conquered your fear of public speaking. Like you feel good in your job. It's helping you in your job. You've essentially achieved your goal. So why keep doing improv now?
Oh my
Probably for
gosh.
all the reasons we talked about, but I mean, like, but yeah, why do you continue to do it?
That is a great question, a grand question, right? Why do any of us do improv? I it's such a hard question to answer, but I just love improv to my core. I don't know how to explain it in any other words other than that it just resonates with me in a way that I don't think that I've experienced prior to finding improv for the most part. I feel like there's just something about it that calls to me and feels like the word passion. And yeah, I feel like I could go on about this for a bit, but I think one of my favorite things about improv is also my favorite things about being human. Above all else, as a human, I love human connection, connecting with others. And I think improv is exactly that. I think that none of us are mind readers, of course. I mean, that's one of the problems of being human, right? Is that there are other humans and other brains, and we're not mind readers, and we're all different. But in the same vein, I think that improv is a little bit of magic. It's a little bit of us working together to attempt to be mind readers together. I think it's a little bit of us getting on stage and being very open to that connection and figuring out, what does that other improviser want? What are they picking up or putting down that I can pick up? And likewise, people are out there trying to support your ideas. And so I just really love that we're kind of building these things together, and it's so collaborative. And I mean, there's all the other technical stuff that I love about improv and that it's funny, but I think at the core, it is us as humans connecting with one another. And it doesn't matter that it only lasts for, maybe the scene lasts for 2 minutes. Just like, human connection doesn't matter if the connection was 2 minutes. If I meet a barista in a town that is in the middle of nowhere that I will never go to again, if I had a good conversation for 2 minutes, that doesn't make the conversation less important. Likewise, it doesn't make our time on the improv stage or in a rehearsal or wherever we are doing it any less important or impactful just because it's fleeting and gone after the very brief scene that we have. So that's some of what I love about improv.
Oh, it was so good. I wasn't going to stop you. I was letting you just keep going because that was so beautiful. What you just said, it really was the connection piece of it. It's huge, right? Like it's amazing. And we don't have that enough. And COVID certainly shined a light on that. And now that we're getting out of it, it's like, yeah, like more connection. That's what we need.
Definitely. 100%. I mean, COVID, I think we all have felt that isolation and how much connection is at the core of being human. And I certainly missed in-person improv during that time. Got to get into online improv, which was amazing to get to learn from so many different instructors and theaters that I wouldn't have otherwise, and very appreciative for that, but also missed in-person improv as well.
Oh, yes, I feel that. And one more question kind of about just your improv journey. Where do you see this leading? Like what's your end goal, end game with improv, if there is one? And it's okay to say, I don't know. I don't care. I just want to keep going.
Another big question, Dana asking all the hard-hitting questions.
Throwing them at you.
I will say I don't know entirely where it's going to lead. I think there's a lot of things that I am hopeful for and see on the horizon and would like to steer towards. For example, I've been teaching improv. I'm currently teaching level 5 of the core curriculum at Finest City Improv, which is a Herald class. Absolutely loving it. Recently taught a Cornerstone Improv workshop on premise-based initiations. I coach a couple teams, a practice group. And so I've really, really been enjoying the teaching aspect of it. And I would like to lean into that harder. I can get more into that as well. I also see my improv journey going in the direction of, I would love to bring higher quality, of course, that's subjective, higher quality improv to the San Diego improv scene. I feel like I see so much room for opportunity and growth, and I can see ways in which we can elevate the art form, and help it within our improv community, but also expanding it outside of that, maybe making it more palatable, not necessarily making it more palatable, but bringing in audiences that are non-improvisers. I would love to do that. I would love to create opportunities for improvisers in San Diego or wherever, to, have stage time to learn. Myself, I'm always striving as an improviser to get better and to work towards, I always want to be able to play with anyone on stage and make them look good. I want to be able to help out any set that I'm in and make it better, help improve any scene that I'm in, whether I'm on the side or in the scene. In the back of my mind, not in the back of my mind, I've been working on trying to create a new form that I think would accomplish some improv goals that I have. I don't have it fully fleshed out. I just have some ideas.
Sure. Oh my God, I can't wait to hear this, see this. That's amazing.
So yeah, it's like a handful of things, right? It's like there's a lot of ideas floating around in my head, but I would love to improve the quality of improv in San Diego, would love to teach more, would love to, work on this new form, work on producing a show that I kind of have an idea for along those lines of elevating improv, making, it more appealing to the general public, etc. So like there's so many different things I would love to do, but one step at a time.
That's amazing. Seriously. And I could see you being such a fantastic improv instructor. You already are. I mean, you're doing it. Instructor, coach, like you're so analytical too. Like you just like want to just nerd out over it and just like dive deeper and just learn all the things. Like I feel like you're very maybe data oriented, analytical side of it, and then you have that good performance side of it too. So yeah, that's incredible. And that leads me to my next question too. I wanted to ask. So you did recently just lead a workshop called "Do It Different" Scene Starter at Cornerstone Improv, and I'm so excited for you. I'm like just so happy for you. So how did it go?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I loved it. I thought it went well. So the reason I wanted to teach this workshop in particular was I personally love premise-based initiations. I love, pulling that from a monologue, an interview, a living room opening, what have you. And it is a little bit heady. So when you mentioned that I'm analytical, very much jives with this. But I love just,
Mm-hmm.
doing that work to put into an initiation a base reality and unusual things so we can hit the ground running and immediately have fun and play with a game. So it's something that I feel strong on as an improviser, and something that I also think that I'm able to analytically break down and articulate to people. And the other reason I wanted to teach it was because I don't feel like I see that skill being taught much in the San Diego improv community. People might do living room openings, or they might do an interview with an audience member or a monologue, but I feel like I don't see them fully using that idea. For example, it might be that someone did a living room opening. The suggestion was soccer, and someone told a story very briefly about how when they were in second grade, they used to play soccer, and their dad from the sideline would coach over the coach. And
Mm-hmm. Sounds like my dad. Yeah.
oh yeah, definitely a dad thing. But all they would pull from the opening in that living room story was, I'm going to initiate with the object work of playing soccer, which is not wrong by any means. But within the story, it gives us so much that's fun to play with. We have the unusual thing in there, the idea of someone of less authority, the dad in this situation, speaking over the person of more authority, which would be the coach here. So that's the funny thing. So to me, I'm like, okay, well, how can we play with that? Maybe we make it, it's a receptionist speaking to the CEO of Apple. Maybe the initiation is, hey, I know I'm just a receptionist here, but Miss CEO of Apple, I think I have a better idea for the iPhone 37 or whatever it is. And I'm like, that to me is so much more. We know the who, what, where. We can hit the ground running. We know what's unusual. Like, let's play it that way. So I wanted to teach that workshop because I didn't see this skill really being broken down and taught to people kind of in a step-by-step way here. Even though we teach those openings, we don't tell people how to pull from them. And so I was really happy with how the workshop went, because I feel like I got to see people develop over those 3 hours, and really start to play and initiate with that power and use those openings. We worked on living room openings, monologues, and interviews, and how to use those. And I feel like I got good feedback as well. Had one of the students reach out to me after and say, I took a workshop back to back with yours, immediately started implementing it, or, saying how that really just changed how they've started to initiate scenes afterwards. So that made me really happy to hear that it was helpful. And I just wanted to give another tool to people to use. And, if they like it, they can use it.
That's incredible. Getting all that good feedback. It helps to hear it, although that's not what keeps you going, but it does help to hear it, that it helped people and you're like, yes, I want to keep doing this more. And a little background for our listeners. So Victoria and I took a class called So You Want to Be an Improv Instructor online in January this year at World's Greatest Improv School. And Victoria, I was just thinking, like, I can't believe that was in January. That feels like a lifetime ago. It really does.
It truly does.
Yeah. But so there were 6 of us in the class, and it was a 7-week long class. And each week, the first week, the instructor kind of talked and gave us some ideas how it would go. And then each week, one of us would lead an hour-and-a-half class, a workshop, and get to test out our material and practice giving notes to the scenes and the scene partners, which is a very hard skill to do. So just having that time to practice was amazing. And I know this workshop was a little different from the one you did in January, but I'm so excited to see you doing it. Like, so you want to be an improv instructor? Yes. And you're doing it. Like, that's incredible. It's awesome.
Oh, thank you so much. Again, being the best hype woman.
So do you see yourself continuing to teach and offer more workshops? Have you caught the bug?
Absolutely. I would love to. I originally stepped into teaching and coaching actually last year in, I think it was August of 2021. And I originally didn't know if I would like teaching or coaching, but I someone gave me the advice that if someone is asking you to coach, it's because they see something in you and you are ready. Because my question was like, well, am I ready for this? And just started coaching and have coached several teams since, and taught a couple classes. And I think it's something where I went in just being like, you know what, I just want to see if this is something that I would like. And I've really, really enjoyed it. I just love the ability to see when people's light bulbs go off, and when there's people who all of a sudden it starts to click for them and you're able to articulate it in a way. Because I think being an improv instructor and teaching is a very different skill than being an improviser. I think they're totally different skill sets. You can be a great improviser and a terrible improv instructor, or potentially even vice versa. But I think that my brain loves to break down and diagnose improv scenes. That's, very inherent in me as an improviser, as a performer, as an audience member, and also as an instructor. I love being able to look at a scene and kind of figure out, okay, like what would have been more helpful for them? What would have been more helpful choices? What is a note that I can give, some feedback I can give that would actually be helpful and move them in a direction where their scenes feel easier, more fun, etc. And so I think, as you mentioned, my analytical brain just loves it. I love figuring out, okay, the reason that this scene didn't work out so well is we didn't really frame the game. So we blew past a bunch of things. We weren't making heightening moves. We weren't reacting. That called for a voice of reason. Maybe, we should have picked up on that, whatever it is. And so I think I'm really enjoying that, and would love to continue doing more teaching and coaching.
Well, so I have a question for you as a teacher and coach. Improv is hard when people start, like, they aren't good at it at first, right? And I feel like that's something I struggle with even still about 3 years in. And for me, it's kind of a unique journey too, of like, I did 2 years of online and now I'm transitioning to in person. It's almost kind of like starting over, not quite at zero, but it is still a learning curve. So, what advice do you give to someone that's like always in their head or feeling like, oh, this is hard and I'm not good at it? Like, how do I keep going? How do you coach someone to keep going?
Oh, that's a great question. I will say, generally, I've coached or taught people with, on the more experienced side, no one that's brand new. Well, I take that back. Actually, with the Toastmasters improv, there were people off the streets who had never done improv before. And so working with them. But yeah, I think in terms of getting out of your head, the advice that I would give is to focus on your scene partner. I think specifically if you're in your head, you're not really paying attention to what's going on in front of you. And if we just tap into what is human about us, which is, every day we are listening and responding. Every day we are improvising in that sense. We're talking to people. So just really honing in on what is your scene partner doing and being interested in them, I think inherently gets you out of your head. So yeah, that's for getting out of your head. And then what was the other one? You had a 2-part question. Was it about being discouraged?
Yeah, just like, you're like, I'm not good at this. Like, it's been a month, it's been a year, it's been 2 years, whatever the time interval is, like, and I'm still not feeling like I get it. Like, how do I keep going with it?
Yeah. I mean, I think always keep going with something only if you're finding it enjoyable. If there's ever a very prolonged period where you're not enjoying it, don't ever force yourself to do it, of course. But I will say, I think all of us, no matter how much experience we have, probably experienced those valleys as opposed to the peaks in our journey. And we all feel a little bit of, I'm kind of plateauing right now, or whatever it is. And I think when that happens, it's just knowing that it's temporary. Like, a lot of things in life, it's temporary and you're going to push through it, and just treating that all as part of the learning process. And like you said, just leaning into it, doubling down, I guess. And knowing that eventually you're going to overcome it. And also, I've heard people say this, but the stakes have never been lower. We're just making it up. And so trying not to put too much weight on what we're doing here and remembering that's not your entire identity. I think some people get very caught up in that.
Oh my God, I love that. The stakes have never been lower. We're all just making it up. And really, I mean, that's a metaphor for life too, right? Like, we're all just making it up as we go. we think we know what we want to do for our careers. We think we know what how our lives we want them to turn out, but we're all just making it up as we go. So I love that quote.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of my teammates used to say that to me before or after an improv show on an indie team I had before the pandemic. And I was like, it's so true.
Well, and I wanted to just go back to something you said earlier where you were like, I don't know if I'm ready, but someone told you, like, if they see something in you, then that means you're ready. And I love that you jumped in and, you're teaching now and you're just seeing where it goes, because I think you can bring so much to the San Diego area and boost it. And, you just never know where that will lead to. So I'm so happy for you.
Definitely. And I think we all sometimes question, what do I bring to the table? I think that imposter syndrome is very common in many areas of life. I certainly feel it. But I think it's also recognizing that we all do bring something to the table. And for me, I'm hoping to bring that here and that people can get something out of it, and something that I think may be a little bit unique to me on my improv journey, and maybe what I bring is just my background from various places. Like you said, we've had the opportunity to learn online from so many places. And I don't think the San Diego improv community as a whole partook in much online improv, but I feel very grateful that I've gotten to learn from many wonderful instructors from all over the world, to perform in festivals, across the country and the globe, to take workshops at a variety of places like camp, and hopefully to bring that back here to those who, aren't able to maybe do those things, and share that and spread that here. Just last night I was coaching an improv house team, and I talked about the concept of flashing, and no, not like Mardi Gras. And
Right.
I've never heard of, well, I take that back. I've heard one person in San Diego mention it ever, but as a whole, I've never heard of it, and learned it from Alex Berg and Billy Merritt in their
Right.
workshops. And so bringing that to a team that I was coaching yesterday, and just seeing how much it helped them in the little way that I mentioned it wasn't our focus, was really a great thing. And I just hope to continue being able to do that.
Yeah. And in the simplest terms, I think I can explain flashing. It's when you hear a suggestion and then you kind of pull from your memory, but it's like the first memory and you just take a piece of it, whatever it makes you think of. Am I explaining that fairly well?
Yes. No, you've got it. Absolutely. And I think the great thing about flashing is it's so hard in improv, to practice on your own, or it can be, but there are certainly exercises we can do on our own. Flashing is definitely one. I'll be driving in my car, passing a billboard, chicken. What does chicken make me think of? Oh, that time where when I was a kid, my mom had chickens and this, this, and this. And I mean, flashing is generally just a technique to initiate an improv scene off of a suggestion and go, and just to give you the context of the who, what, where, without having to invent, because you're pulling it from your memory. But I think you explained it perfectly.
I like to think too that makes you a better party guest too. Like if you can hear like words and, if the conversation isn't going well or something, it's a way to keep the conversation going. You have stories, like you're an interesting person. You can share like what this made you think of and what that made you think of. I don't know. I always think that that helps in the long run, outside
Definitely.
of improv too. Teach, I've got a question for you. So what's your favorite, Miss Koenitzer,
Oh, gosh.
what is your, which I know you don't get called that at improv, but okay. So Teach, what is your favorite improv exercise of all time to do, no matter who you're teaching? Like what's your favorite one to lead or participate in?
One that I really like, and have at least found helpful the times that I've run it for people, involves game. For those who are familiar with it, I'm using the UCB definition of game. But what I like to do is when people are struggling to find game or frame game as part one, and then to play game as part two, the improv exercise that I like to lead is one that involves, you get two people up, the whole rest of the team is on the back line, and the two people are just going to do a scene, just kind of like organically, no premise-based initiation, just starting. And the first time that anyone hears the unusual thing, something weird, anyone from either the backline or in the scene raises their hand. I'll then stop the scene and I'll say, what was weird? What was unusual? We'll talk about it. And I'll be like, okay, like, let's whittle that down to, you know, this person, for example, we label it, we put a term on it. Like, this person is overreacting to something small, whatever it is. And I'm like, great, I'm going to unpause the scene. I want you to frame it using another UCB term and specifically call out that that's what the other person is doing. They're overreacting to something small. You can't be clear enough in improv, right? So you're going to say it. The other person's going to acknowledge it. We're going to continue on with the scene. So now that both people are on the same page, we've agreed with what's unusual. We continue. From there, the back line, anyone is allowed to, I won't use the word tag because that's not what we do here. I'll use the word tap. Anyone is allowed to tap in and become one of the other improvisers. So unlike a tag where, you know, we are a new person in a new setting, I want the players on the back line to assume the position of the improviser that they tapped out. So if it was you and I in the original scene and someone tapped my shoulder, they become me, my same character in the same setting, playing with your character. But I ask that they do this and they only tap in when they know the next heightening move. What's the next move to play the game? And that gives, I think, people a lot of opportunities to, while I think we struggle sometimes while we're in the scene, right, to figure out, okay, well, what's the next move with this game? So it takes a little bit of the pressure off, allows everyone on the back line to think about it, to choose either player to make that next game move, step in, make the heightening move. And then, you know, we go back and forth and keep letting players sub in and do that. And I just love running that because I think oftentimes, for me, I'm a very gamey player. And I understand that, have my background in UCB as well. And I think WGIS also hones in on it a lot. But as a very gamey player, I just find that it's very helpful because the second that we run into the first unusual thing, if we just are like, that's it, and we don't blow past it, man, we've got the whole rest of the scene to play. And then it's just figuring out how do we play with it. So I think it does two birds, one stone of finding/framing the game and then also playing it.
I love that. I've done that exercise before. And for me, it's so helpful to hear that something was unusual. Because in my head, sometimes I put a lot of pressure on, like, it's got to be really unusual. And
Yeah.
A lot of times it's like, oh, like someone's making a bigger deal out of like nothing. I'm like, oh, that can be unusual. Like, it's a great way to see examples of unusual things too and how they can be played out. I do like that exercise too.
And I think people don't give enough credit to like what is unusual, or like you're saying, we think it has to be bigger or more unusual. But I remember I was taking a position play workshop with Miles Stroth, a 4-week one, and someone initiated, and he was asking us just to listen to what we thought that the person initiating was. Were they the unusual character or the voice of reason? What were they? And someone initiated a scene, and it was just like, you're playing Pink Floyd again? And the other person was like, they responded in a way that did not indicate that they understood that maybe that was weird. So Miles paused the scene and he was like, no, just the fact that someone is playing Pink Floyd again, that's enough to be weird. You have that in the first line. Or I was teaching at level 5 the Herald the other day, and someone initiated being like, yeah, I don't know why you brought me to this cave. And the second line was, well, to eat dinner romantically. And then they blew past it. And like, I stopped them 45 seconds in being like, hey, did anyone in the class notice when the first unusual thing happened? Like, did anyone find it weird that someone brought someone else to a cave to eat dinner romantically? Like, that's weird. Let's play with that. I want to know why that's happening.
Sometimes we say yes and a little too quickly. We're like, yeah, we're in a cave, of course, and we're here to eat dinner. What's so weird about that?
Right, exactly. And I'm like, no, we could play with that. That's weird. And yes and is not literal. I think we're taught it in the early levels or beginning stages of improv is like literally say yes. I think it more just means say yes to the reality. So if someone's like, hey mom, how you doing? Don't be like, I'm not your mom, I'm a dinosaur. But you can disagree with a point of view or call out when something's weird.
That's a great example of a no but disguised as a yes, but yeah.
Yeah, I use that example when I used to I don't want to say teach, but when I would run the Improv Masters short form stuff and there were new people off the street, we'd give a very brief intro of like things to keep in mind with improv while we're doing this. You know, number one, just yes and that just means like if someone says, hey mom, don't say, hey, I'm not your mom, I'm your grandpa, or whatever it is. You know?
Right.
I like dinosaur
Fantastic.
better now.
Yeah, I like dinosaur too. Keep that one in your back pocket. Okay, Victoria, last question for you. I mean, we've talked a lot about just this creative outlet and that you found, and you still have your full-time job and you find time for this creative outlet. And it seems like you dedicate a lot of time to this creative outlet. So my question for you is just, you know, what do you say to someone, any tips for those who think they have no creative bone in their body, or they might feel they're stuck creatively and need some help to find that creative passion or outlet? What would you have to say to them?
Oh man, that's a good one. So many good questions today, Dana.
Last one, I promise.
No, I love all of them. I would say maybe reevaluate, what does the word creative actually mean to you? I think maybe we're setting too high of a bar for what creativity is. I think we're all inherently as humans creative, right? We all have improvised conversations every single day. We're all creating just by existing. We are giving input and output, I guess, into the world. And yeah, so I just encourage people to think that they are enough and that whatever they want to create, they can, and that we're doing it in a lot of ways that we don't recognize. So to say that, you know, you don't think that you're a creative type or don't have that, I don't necessarily think that's true. Maybe you just haven't found your medium or something that has caught your eye yet. And for that, I think I would say, I guess going back to a little bit of what I was touching on earlier, just we never know when we're going to find our next favorite thing. We never know when that's around the corner. So I encourage people to follow that fear and just jump in and try things, because the worst case, you're not going to like it and you can just never do it again. But you could also be like me and you could step into an improv Toastmasters class one evening on a Wednesday night and your life could change and you could find something that you absolutely adore. And it's so worth it just to try things out. So I would encourage people just to, think that they're enough and that they, I'm sure, are creative, and just go out and try things and experiment and see what catches you.
Oh, I love it. I love it. You never know what your next hobby is, what your next passion is. So if you've been thinking about doing something, go ahead and try it. It might lead to tears like my skiing incidents, or it might lead to a love that you didn't realize you had for improv or whatever it is you find. So thank you, Victoria. That was a great way to end it. I kind of lied, so I have one more question for you. But yes, I think this one's an easier one. Where and how can our listeners find out more about you and learn about your shows and classes you're teaching?
Oh my gosh, of course. So if you want to find me on Facebook, I'm the only Victoria Koenitzer. You can message me. I'm also on Instagram at Against All Odds 25, all one word, no underscores. My account's private, but you can message me and maybe I'll see it.
I feel like that has a story behind it. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. What's the Against All Odds, if you feel like sharing?
Yeah, sure. I was an angsty teenager. And I feel like in high school, I just thought that I was a nonconformist and I thought that was the highest virtue anyone could have, and that the world is kind of against us. And I saw all these flaws with the world, but I was like, you know what, against all odds, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to move forward. I'm not going to let it get me down. I will improve the world. I'll make the world a better place, whatever it was. But I just thought, I was very pessimistic about society in a way. I would also say optimistic in that, I think we can break through. But that was a very angsty choice, and I just have never changed it.
No, I love it. I feel like it's probably more positive leaning now, right? Not the angsty background like you started.
Yeah, I think I was a bit jaded. My father forced me to go to a private Catholic high school when I'd only ever gone to public school. And I was like, oh, everyone here is a sheep and they just do what everyone tells them to and they just march and step. And I was like, no, we have to break free. We have to think. We have to question things. And I don't know. That was more of my mindset at the time. And I do still agree with those things, just a little bit more on the positive side of it.
I love it. Yes. So against all odds, 25. That's your Instagram handle. What else? What else? Where else can people find more about you?
Um, yeah, so if you message me on either of those, I could tell you if I have workshops or anything coming up. I also have a public Instagram that is one of my improv duo's Instagrams. It's Silly Gooses Improv, all one word. We do a duo deconstruction with my lovely friend Amir. And you can find me on LinkedIn. If you type in Victoria Koenitzer, I'm there. Oh, gosh, I really wish I knew my schedule. I usually have shows every weekend. I don't this weekend. Actually, no, I lied. Later tonight, I have a clown show. I'm taking a clown class right after this. And tonight I have my very first clown show at Finest City Improv. And tomorrow, my level 5 students are going to do a Herald after only having done it for 4 weeks. And I'm very excited for them. So that's going to be exciting, though I'm not in it. And then, yeah, most weekends you can find me just around San Diego performing Finest City Improv, sometimes Mockingbird Improv. What teams? Let's see. My house team at Finest City Improv is One Shriek Hillcrest. I have a duo that I mentioned, Silly Gooses. I have another duo with my friend Sophia Daher, which is Kindred. I have a couple indie teams, including a slacker team called Return of the Slack, as well as a team called Utopian Hangover, which was actually born out of the San Diego improvisers that went to Yosemite Camp last year. Yeah, those are off the top of my head. I'm going to feel so bad if I had just left out a team. I also am becoming part of this new league in San Diego that's not affiliated with the theater called IFL. It's being brought down from Orange County.
Oh, cool.
It's kind of like a combination of long form, short form, but like competitive. And I'm coaching one of the teams. We have a show, we are the East Village Villains, and we have shows every couple Sunday nights. So you can catch me there. Otherwise, just keep a lookout on, for those team names.
Oh my God.
So I'm around most weekends, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, or Sundays. Might be somewhere.
Always doing improv. Maybe that's your next IG handle there.
Always doing improv.
Yeah. But I love that you have to be like, let's see, what teams am I on? This one, this one, this one, this one. Like I'm on one team and that's enough right now.
I love it.
Kudos to you. That's amazing.
Oh yeah. Some of them perform more than others. Oh my gosh. And of course my indie team, Egg. I could not forget them. Egg! Now I feel so bad. We do a Herald.
No, you remembered. And you were the last, but certainly the best, Egg.
Right. They're also probably my newest team. So that's why less on the brain, but absolutely adore them as well. So bunch of improv forms. You can see me do different ones. And it's
incredible. And I will add, I love following Silly Goose's improv because there's always stories of ducks or gooses or geese on my IG, and it just makes me smile every time. It's so funny.
I love that we got you to say gooses. Yes, we are converting people.
Right? Success.
Yes, we will. If you send us, I run the Instagram page. If you send us a photo or a video or anything of a goose or geese or a duck, even, we will repost and give you credit.
Oh, amazing. Well, Victoria, I will let you get to your show that's coming up soon. You just did an hour-long podcast recording and then just going to make them up and have a show after this. That is incredible. Thank you so much for sharing today. I'm eternally grateful. I've learned so much from you. I love your story. It's similar to mine. You've just started it earlier, so I'm just going to keep following your lead and hoping I end up in a similar path as you, because I love it. And I love how much you love it. It's infectious and contagious. And I'm just so happy to have met you and happy to see you next weekend. I can't wait.
I know. Oh, thank you so much for having me, Dana. You are such a lovely human, a phenomenal improviser, and just such a gracious host in this whole podcast. So thank you so much for having me. And I'm so excited to hug you next week at camp.
Oh, yes. All the hugs. Yes. And it feels a little bit better than last year. So it's like, yes, all the hugs. Come on, bring it in. Let's do this.
Oh, yes. I'm so excited. I will just tackle you. Be ready. Wear some gear just in case we go to the ground.
Right. Oh man, we'll have a fantastic show tonight and break all the legs. I think that's how the saying goes. And yeah, have a blast doing it too.
Oh, thank you so much.
And to our listeners, thank you so much for listening today and joining us for the Improvly Speaking podcast. I hope you got as much out of this as I did. And I just wanted to mention that you heard Victoria's story about how she was terrified to speak in front of people and knew she had to get better, so she did something about it. She worked at it to get better. So I want to ask you, what is a skill that you wish you could do better? And what can you do to get better at it? I love how Victoria said that your next hobby is just around the corner. It could be one that you have no idea you'll love until you do it. So, what are you thinking? What is it that you can do to get better at this skill that you don't feel great about right now? And I want to hear from you. You can reach out to me at dana@improvispeaking.com. That's DAYNA. I got that fun little Y in there. Dana@improvispeaking.com. Let me know what your creative passions are and how you are pushing past the obstacles that come up. It really helps to share with others rather than internalize it and just think, oh, I could do that. But when you talk to someone and tell them, hey, I'm going to do this, that helps to keep you accountable. So please share and we can work through our roadblocks and obstacles and just general self-doubt together. I also offer public speaking coaching, and I use the principles of improv to help my clients feel more comfortable with speaking in front of others and dealing with impromptu issues that may come up. If you have an upcoming speech or presentation that you're nervous about, let's chat and see how you can feel more excited and ready for your big presentation and ready for anything that comes up during the presentation that you weren't expecting. You can also reach out to me on social media if that's easier or more preferred. On Instagram, I'm at Improvly Speaking. On LinkedIn, you can find me at Dana Gowan or improvispeaking.com to learn more about the services I have to offer. And with that, I just want to thank you all for listening, and I hope you go forth and find your creative passion, find your creative outlet, and love it as much as Victoria does. Thank you again for listening and supporting Improvly Speaking. Talk to you next time.